that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
1963, 250,000 people, black and white, marched to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. to listen to Martin Luther King Jr. deliver his monumental I Have a Dream speech. The 1960s was a decade of both disparity and celebration for African Americans. Racial segregation was still prevalent and met with anger and frustration from the black community. Violent riots erupted in black communities across our country. Watts, Brooklyn, Harlem, and Detroit, to name a few. The Motor City experienced it the worst. In just 5 days of riots, 43 people died, 700 fires were set, 2,500 stores looted, and 7,000 people arrested. Years of poverty, hopelessness, and despair describes the socio-economic climate African Americans were subjected to. Out of these communities emerged two new and influential musical genres that became the voice of Black America: Motown and soul music. Berry Gordy Jr., a Detroit native, created Motown Records. The sound of young America, as Gordy described Motown, made black music marketable to large white audiences. Gordy trained his performers to become appealing to upper-class white society. Some of Motown's greatest artists include Diana Ross and the Supremes, The Temptations, Stevie Wonder, and the Jackson 5. Gordy successfully marketed and sold the music of black youth to the white American masses. Motown became the biggest black-owned business in the U.S. By 1969, Motown placed 14 number one pop singles, 20 number one R&B singles, 46 top 15 singles, and 75 other top 15 R&B albums. Soul music, created by and for black Americans. A perfect fusion of gospel tradition with rhythm and blues. Soul represented black power and black pride. It was music that instilled confidence in its listeners. It reasserted dignity for African Americans. Soul artists sang about social injustice, love, nonviolence, and racial pride. Ray Charles, the godfather of soul, the genius of soul. Rolling Stone magazine's 10th greatest artist of all time and 2nd greatest singer of all time. 300 million albums sold worldwide. Ray Charles led the way for many black artists after him to break into the mainstream. He was the first black artist that refused to play to segregated audiences in the South. Ray's actions ended separating black and white concertgoers. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. Born in Detroit, at the age of 14, Aretha was already a traveling gospel singer. With the release of Respect in 1967, she became the best-selling female artist up to that date. Her songs became anthems for blacks that revolted in the ghettos of her hometown. For white listeners, this song exemplified the renewed self-pride that African Americans had discovered. James Brown, one of the most influential and dynamic stage performers of his time. Brown became the voice of the black community. His songs became anthems for black power and the movement of the 1960s. Songs such as Black is Beautiful and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud instilled confidence and hope into his listeners. After achieving considerable success, Brown donated millions of dollars to inner-city schools and charities. Black music in the 1960s broke down barriers and opened up doors for new opportunities for race relations in our country. Motown and soul tells us stories of blacks and whites coming together. They are products of a particular time and set of circumstances we hope our country will never repeat. We must not forget the 1960s and its music. It serves as a reminder of the drastic push for social change that is such a large part of our nation's history. The positive effects of the music are very prevalent today. Motown and soul music, together, helped Martin Luther King's dreams finally come true.
Oh, beautiful, far